Bum, bum, bum. Okay, we'll do it like that. Minimum lighting. Don't like these new t-shirts with the cut down on the neck so much. A bit girly. Right. I wanted today to go on more about understanding that understanding is normally non-understanding. But Dafty's put a comment in that I should acknowledge as a good and reasonable comment. Or at least that's what I feel I should do. So I just said it. And it makes me backtrack to fill in for, because I think on the second one people got more of what I was saying about understanding. But there'll be nagging doubts, obviously. And Dafty points out the reasonableness of some of the nagging doubts. And I've thought about them this morning. When we see it say that we understand something, now I'm just going to use the top half of Dafty's comment. Further down, he acknowledges that there are things that we don't understand, even when we say we do. But pointing out at the beginning, reasonably, when we say that we understand something, it's simply an agreement on a default position specific to a paradigm or sub-paradigm we are operating within. Now, let's forget the sub-paradigm, as in that confuses matters too much. We're just agreeing some basic ground rules. And we could even say, if we were getting into free will, I say you and I when I'm trying to explain that there is no you and there is no I. That sort of thing. It's a basic paradigm. We're going to agree to use these words as stand-in for something. But as Dafty says, something like we're going to use the paradigm of the spherical Earth or round Earth or oblate spheroid or whatever as our normal, what we believe in general running. And we're not so much saying that we understand about the world being round. We're saying that we understand that we're both going to use certain basic concepts in our communication. Like, there would be no point having a conversation about going to discover some world over there when I'm dealing with a round world paradigm and you're dealing with a flat earth paradigm. There are some ground rules that have to be established before we start, and we can understand that those ground rules are what they are. What we're really saying here is we can establish some basic agreement on what concepts are. Mug of tea? Okay, mug of tea. That sort of thing, right. But when we get to understanding, I'll just throw one out because I don't want to go on with this. All of this was just to acknowledge Dafty's reasonable comment. When we come to feelings, emotions, consciousness, awareness, for example, we're never really going to get a paradigm agreement because it's too complicated. Why is it too complicated? I could go into it and that would take up another 10 minutes, so I won't go into it. That's the sort of thing I was going to go into before I read Dafty's comment. Okay. And I should say something about Axel's video that he put up of UG. I think I'd seen it before. Lots of shouting going on. And I could talk about lots of parts of it, But the bit that Axel highlighted was the fact that Yuji was saying, I'm just barking like a dog. And I watched the video. I think it's again, pretty sure I've seen it before. And this is completely split in half, this video. This is a completely different paradigm that we're talking about. Well, I've finished with the Dafty thing. I've moved on. No, I've moved on that way. What there was, I think, was Yuji saying, I'm barking like a dog. And then he went on to say something like, and then you're translating it into English or something. But what he was really meaning is, then you're assigning different meanings to my words or different paradigms to my words. What he was basically saying, we're not communicating at all together. He was, I'm sure, initially meaning something like, I'm just going blah, blah, blah. The world is just making me go. Hand in the air, mouth move, air coming out, vibrations, things happen. And then that is causing you to go, whatever it is. But what we ended up was, there's just confusion of paradigms, complete confusion of paradigms. There could be no understanding between them. I wouldn't be surprised, all the people in the room and Yuji. But that seemingly, because over the last couple of nights, because that's the way it's turned out, I've been watching more Lisa. And that's not blonde Lisa, that's the other Lisa, Lisa Lennon. Ella and Rebecca, all who have come out of the Tony Parsons stable. And so do have a lot of words of explanation of enlightenment in common. Yuji was kind of always on his own. He was, I'm pretty sure he was never let's call it a disciple to a guru. I think his enlightenment maybe came when he was in the room with Jiddu Krishnamurti, but he never ever thought much of Jiddu Krishnamurti and wouldn't use his words anyway. So Yuji was kind of on his own, trying to explain his enlightenment. And I'm doing this enlightenment because we just agree that something's happened in the brain of these people that make them see life differently. So Yuji was trying to explain it, but there was no understanding because there was no paradigm agreement. Put Yuji aside and go with Lisa, Ella and Rebecca, all Tony Parsons disciples who use on and off the same sort of Tony Parsons language. But we note that even Tony couldn't get paradigm agreement on these words, although he was the guru, the enlightened guru, because the people listening could not grok what the paradigm was, or can't grok what the paradigm is. And that's the same with the people that are trying to communicate with Lisa, Ella and Rebecca. And they are going, no, it's not that, it's not that, it's not that, it's not that. In other words, we have not achieved our agreement, our understanding on what the paradigm is. Now, why did I want to bring these people up? I think it was actually, I wanted to do this in 2 videos time, and really it was to explain the video I was going to make before I saw Dafty's comment. So I'm kind of out of sequence now. Basically, I think where I was going to get to was that these girls, let's say the 3 girls, the 3 girls are talking, using words, describing a paradigm, that must be 10 minutes, that we do not use. We don't use this paradigm. So we're always in confusion about what they're talking about. But going back to Daphne's comment, it's almost linking up, we can agree on the paradigm of simple things. You. No, that's in American, means sit on it and spin on it or something stupid, isn't it? English, anyway, that I think has always meant fuck off. You, fuck off. Or just to some in for somebody's face mean fuck. It's a paradigm that I think we could all understand. We can get with that paradigm. But as soon as it gets complicated, neoliberalism, or I'm taking it to an extreme, nobody understands what that is. Or awareness, consciousness, and whatever the other things I said. Feelings and emotions. We can't get down to an agreement on what they are because we seem to all have different ideas about what those are, but we can agree that we'll go with the paradigm of that's simple enough. In other words, we can understand extremely simple things, or just simple things, but as soon as we get to complicated things, we can't understand them, because we could say that the cause and effect chain breaks down. That can be understood, and it either has the effect or it doesn't. But talking about awareness, it never connects. It rarely connects. It doesn't connect. It just, well, what are we talking about? Right. What I'm trying to talk about is the three girls. What they seem to be describing in their struggling for words way to try and say what their new paradigm is very much can be used to plug holes in where I've exposed holes in what are normally accepted paradigms, like I and free will, understanding, cause and effect, we've got time, all sorts of strange things. Their new paradigm perhaps can be used to solid up what I've been running into as complications where we can never achieve understanding because we can't be on the same paradigm, because there are so many things that just go past each other. They don't actually fit. We've got lots of people going around kind of agreeing on words, paradigms, but when it's really shaken, you can just see it just instantly falls apart. There is no real agreement because it's just a kind of an agreement only because if we disagreed on all of these agreements, we wouldn't get anywhere. But if we're doing this, which might be termed philosophy, that's the idea, that we shake these agreements and see how well they hold up. And what we're finding is most all of them don't hold up. But using what these girls seem to be saying might be a method of getting some understanding, getting some paradigm in these trickier philosophical questions that we really don't have now, that they certainly don't stand up to any shaking. But we can't do it because we don't know quite what the girls are talking about. And I was about to say something like, you've got to be a bit weird. Obviously, we're all slightly weird, or you wouldn't be watching this. You've got to be slightly weird. You've got to be quite a lot weird. We very really quite weird people, have got a chance of understanding at least what is called intellectually what the girls might be talking about, and taking what they might be talking about and seeing if we can plug these holes up and glue something together in the understanding of the more complicated things that, when shaken, now fall apart because the underlying paradigm that's meant to be keeping them together is false. It's just they're only sticking together because they've not been shaken, but as soon as you shake them, they fall apart. But we might be able to stick them together. Would that be any good? It's something to do rather than watching Friends on the television. Although Friends is meant to be jolly good. But let's just say it seems to be what we are doing. So I'll stop doing this video and probably one day, probably tomorrow, do another video. See how we go. Bye.